Welcome to Wired AF. You're listening to your host, Steph and Brandon. Today we're going to teach you about rest days and why more is actually more and more is not better. And you've probably been in this situation before where you're working really hard, you probably feel more burnt out than ever, you're probably not seeing the progress that you want, and it's probably because you need to rest more and work out less, which seems at some point counterintuitive, but it's actually not if you understand how your body works and how recovery works. So that's what we're going to teach you about today.
Yeah, exactly. We often find people like when they first start training or even when they think that they're hitting a plateau, they're like, oh, I just need to train extra days, I need to do more work. And that's not always the case. I feel like you need to be more efficient with your training, and you need to do training that's going to be actually provide enough stimulus so that you can get better, whether that's stronger or fitter or whatever it is you're working towards. But then you also need to give your body that chance to rest and do nothing and like actually replenish its energy stores and build muscle and do all those kind of processes that it needs to do. Because essentially when you're training, like you're kind of breaking your body down a little bit in a way, you know, like you're actually like tearing your muscle tissue a tiny bit so that your muscles can build and get stronger. So like, of course you need to rest to make it recover better and to get stronger and to get results. People always underestimate how important that is.
Exactly, and that stimulus that Steph was talking about is the more and more we train people, the more and more we keep getting surprised how people don't actually need quite a lot to improve. They actually need just a little bit of volume, just a little bit of training, just a little bit of this, just 3 days, just that extra day, not 5 days, 6 days, not every day, not all of the sets, not everything that's written in the program. There's no like, the minimum,
you don't have to kill yourself.
Yeah, the minimum amount is so low to improve. So you'd be surprised. And then we often find people, that's why we're doing this podcast, people are doing so much and they're not getting anywhere and they don't have that much to show for it.
And the other thing is you just burn out if you do too much. Like you just can't, you get to a point where you almost can't handle it mentally and physically. And then you'll find that your training quality actually drops because you're doing so much. So if you put your time and you put your energy into places that are actually going to improve and you like really efficient about it, you're just going to find that you get really good results, I think. So
yeah, and
that's what we find.
That's not what so what we're talking about today is people that are overtraining, but they're just kind of average people, like our listeners that, you guys have another job, you're not professional athletes.
General population.
Yeah, just general population.
Yeah.
We're not talking about what we did an episode at the very, very early on in our podcast where we talked about overtraining and how there's a stage in your training where you may overreach and you may do a lot of volume and a lot of intensity, and then that is purposely going to over fatigue you so that you'll recover and then come back stronger with the proper rest. It's always that's in mind as well. So even though you might be pushing yourself to the limits in that scenario that we talked about early on, you're actually going to take quite a bit of rest and then recover to come back stronger. So we're not trying to, we're not talking about that today. Now we're just talking about maybe someone who's doing Pilates every day, or Pilates double classes, or Pilates, multiple, or training, 7 days a week where they don't necessarily have to. Going for a run after you finish your class with us. It's even just too much.
Yeah, like your normal person that wants to kind of do everything and like get involved in all different things. Like, they'll do weightlifting 4 days a week, and then they'll do 4 runs a week, and then they'll do a yoga class a week, and then they'll also go for a walk. And it's like, there's a point where like it's enough is enough. You can do too much. Like you're just not always going to feel great. So when we've experienced this too, like, you and I, we've both kind of gone through this where we know what it's like to do too much and want to do more and think that doing more will make you better, and it's just not the case.
And that's the angle that we're coming from, and that's what we're trying to get across to you guys, and hopefully that comes across in today's podcast. So one of the things that we find is the first part is just the fatigue of the body. So for example, if I in the past would do quite a lot of, or maybe extra lifting or extra sets or heavier weights, and the program would call for this and I would go for heavier than that. And so just listening to my body, and it's, people say it all the time, listen to your body, but when you feel really tired, there will be a time to push, but more often than not, if it's telling you a 7 out of 10 is only 60 kilos, but 7 out of 10 is normally 100, or maybe you're really fatigued, maybe you need to go a little bit lighter. You shouldn't just push yourself for no reason. So what kind of things happen when someone gets really fatigued?
Yeah, well, I mean, as an osteo, I see people who come in all the time with overuse injuries. So the most common ones that I see for people who are training too much or who have just suddenly gone from nothing to a shitload of training, like they're the ones that will get an overuse injury. And it's usually things like tendinopathies or tendonitis, which pretty much both are inflammation of a tendon. It's just that one hangs around for longer and one's a little bit more acute. So tendonitis and tendinopathies you see pretty commonly. You'll also see like things like bursitis, which can happen in pretty much lots of different joints in the body, not just one area, like a lot of people think. You can get bursitis. You can also get stress fractures. So shin splints is a super common one that people will get. Also in the feet is another one as well for runners. It's really, really common. So just things to think about, like you are putting yourself at more risk if you're doing too much training, even if you're just a regular gym goer. So be careful.
So one thing that builds on what Steph said as well is if you do have an injury and you are someone who typically likes to do more than what they bites of more than what they can chew, you're more likely to take that. Your recovery time is more likely to be a lot longer because you're actually delaying it because you're doing too much. So often we see this to be the case. I've experienced it. Yeah. I know what it's like because I've done it, and now I know it's as hard as it is. You just rest, and then you'll be able to come back so much stronger. But it is so hard. Like, doing things like, test, even just simple things like, testing it, seeing if it still hurts, that shit like that.
Athletes are the worst because
that is the stuff that slows you down.
Athletes are the worst to deal with sometimes. They're the best and the worst because I'll tell them I'll tell you, you need to slow down. This is what I need you to do. I just need you to take 3 days of backing off weightlifting, and they really don't want to. Athletes really don't want to stop. They just want to keep pushing and keep going.
And it's not even like I'm stopping. It's just doing it lighter or doing it a little bit less. Now I feel like I'm I hope I'm a lot better at it.
I think you are now.
Than what I was before. But hopefully you guys can learn from our mistakes and put that into your own training. And hopefully that helps you as much as it's helping us now, is listening to your body and actually, taking that time to reassess, relax, and it's not going anywhere. So, often I find with all the injuries that, say, I've dealt with, whether they're small ones or big ones, and they put you out for a couple of days or a month, it doesn't really matter, or whether it's a client as well, you'll be back in no time if you give yourself the proper rest. If you try and hold on to that, whatever it is you're trying to hold on to, that, weight that you're lifting or the training or movements that you're doing, you're only going to prolong it. So just give yourself that recovery time.
And when we're talking about listening to your body, we actually did the podcast about stress last week, and we spoke about a lot of signs of stress. And basically training is stress on your body. So if you're too tired or you're overtraining or you just, you're starting to do too much, you're going to see signs of stress like what we spoke about in last week's podcast. So, there are emotional signs, there are physical signs. So if you don't know how to listen to your body, keep an eye on those different signs. Are you sleeping well? Maybe you're not. Are you finding that you're craving more foods that you wouldn't normally? Maybe your mood isn't quite right. It's a bit all over the place. You might just feel a bit out of sorts. You might have injuries or niggles. You might just notice lots of different little things. So it is really tricky to listen to your body, and everyone says, listen to your body. But it is going to be very personal. So you do need to just kind of pay attention to those things and see if it is related to doing too much exercise.
Yeah, definitely. And so one of the things that we see, just hit the mic. One of the things that we see that's really common, especially obviously with the good old social media, but that whole no days off kind of message. Yeah, that message that's being promoted, and, don't take any days off or don't do these things. And, you have to, the whole alpha bullshit that you see, it's just not true, and it just doesn't make any sense because it's not how you follow a proper program, and it's not how we train. And regardless if you're following a program at all, if you were to just listen to your body, I'm doing that in quotation marks, you probably find you'd train for a few days, take a day off, train for a few days, take a day off, and it would work really well for you. Whereas if you would follow I don't rest on Sundays, you see plenty of people that you might follow on Instagram, this is the first rest day I've had in 12 months. It's like, well, that's stupid.
It's a lot.
That's ridiculous. How is that sustainable? Mentally, they probably feel like shit.
But like, I've done this too. Like, so I understand where people are coming from, because I used to think that I couldn't take days off. But then you read more and you learn more and you realize that you can get better on maybe 3 days of training a week or 4 days of training a week.
You can though.
And you actually can. It's about being consistent, and you want longevity in your training essentially. So if you're training every single day, is that really something you can sustain all year? Like, I don't think it is. Maybe it's a bit different if you're a top level athlete. Like what we said, we're talking about general population here. And you just, like, what else do you have to sacrifice to be able to do that every day as well?
Yeah, the other thing is then that leads on to that is the quality of the training that you're going to be completing. If you are training and you're not giving yourself the rest, the quality of the training that you're going to be doing is maybe not to your knowledge, but maybe from an objective point of view, is going to be quite low. So if you are someone who's maybe, doing, I'm not sure, I don't know, but for us, if you're someone who's doing like weightlifting and you can physically see that the lifts aren't looking as nice, the power's not there, the weights that you're lifting aren't as great, that's how I would say for myself that I need a break or I need a rest. But even simple things like just that urge to want to put your hands on the bar and actually get started, or maybe if you are running and you find you're going to exhaustion quite early on where you would normally not be fatigued, that's another sign that you're objectively quite fatigued as well, and you need that rest. So the quality of the training that you're going to be doing is dropping, and because the quality of training is dropping, the likelihood of that training making you better is very low as well. So the more you can rest and recover, the better your training, the more weight you can lift in the gym, the more likely you are to get better and stronger. So it just kind of goes hand in hand. Hopefully you guys can see in that instance that how resting actually makes you stronger.
Well, I made this mistake a few weeks ago. Like, I was, I've been getting really like back into training properly recently. I feel like the last few years I haven't really had a groove. I think because I was finishing uni, I didn't really have a bit of a groove. And now I'm back in my training groove. I'm like, yep, I'm good. I'm like really feeling it. I'm loving it. It's really good. And because I'm loving it, there was a day a few weeks ago, I trained at lunchtime, and then I came to a class at night as well, in the 7 o'clock class. Do you remember? And I was doing the 7 o'clock class at night, and as soon as I started training, so this is my second session for the day, and I'd already trained every day this week too, and it was my second session for the day, and as soon as I started training, I think we had squats, I was like, this was a mistake. Like, I'm feeling like shit. My squats were shit. I was feeling shit. Wasn't moving as well as I thought I could.
But they probably felt like that.
But that's how I felt, and I just knew as soon as I started, I'm like, this was a really bad idea, and I didn't want to give up. Like, I wanted to keep pushing because I was like, yep, I'm really into it. Like, I'm gonna get better because I really like squats, and I need to do squats, and this is going to be good for you, or good for me. I mean, and we moved on to then the conditioning component of the workout, and like I was moving really, really slow. Like, I just wasn't making the most of the training session. I was there just to grind, and afterwards I was like, I learned my lesson. I'm not going to do that. And then I actually took 3 days off, and I didn't train for 3 days, and that was the best thing I could have done, because like I'd done too much in one day, and it wasn't a good idea. And then the effect was, well, I couldn't train on Friday, which is what I had initially planned on doing and I wanted to do, but then because I did the 2 and the Thursday, couldn't train Friday, and then I had to take the rest of the weekend off anyway because I was so tired. But then because I took that time off to rest, I came back the next week and I was okay. If I had just kept pushing through that whole weekend, we'd probably having a very different conversation right now. I'd probably be very injured and like just struggling a lot more. But like, it's, I learned that was not smart, and I've been training for a long time. So, we're still learning too, but it's easy when you get excited to want to keep doing more. But you're not going to get better from it. You're just not.
Exactly. So then let's talk about how the rest days and how we view rest days in our own program, and what we talk about and what we consider as rest days is, so there's the complete rest and there's active recovery. So you might see, someone you follow online might do active recovery, or they say this is their rest day, and their rest day is they do a maximum squat, which is so stupid, or this is my rest day. Normally I don't do much, and then do like a PB 5K on the rower and then max double unders, and they do like 1,000 double unders. It's just what you see online. It's so true.
So rest days are they're very subjective to everyone, but
That's
talking
not a rest
about
day in anyone's world anyway.
Yeah, when we're talking about rest days, we mean you've got number one, option one is complete rest, no exercise. You might just be hanging out at home, sleeping, eating, like that's your rest day. Maybe you go for a little walk around the block and that's it. The other one is an active recovery rest day. And we're not talking about like going heavy. You might be, depending on your sport, you might be going for a walk, maybe a longer walk than a walk around the block. You know, like we'll do an hour and a half walk maybe on a Sunday. You might do some stretching.
Shuffle.
You might
It's a shuffle.
It kind of is a shuffle. But we get a snack in the middle, so that's fine. You might go to the pool, do like a couple laps, but again, not pushing, not doing the training like version of that. You're just moving. For weightlifters, they might just hold the bar and do a couple of reps on the bar and not work on that speed, not work on putting weights on it all. They just move. Some people, for their active recovery rest day, they just do accessories. So that could be like getting on the bike for a little bit. Maybe they do like a bent over row. Maybe they're doing like their rehab exercises that they've been prescribed. We really encourage like gentle active recovery, such as stretching and walking are really good, or getting in the pool, and then complete rest as well. That's what we think is really beneficial.
Definitely. And the psychological impacts of pushing yourself really hard on a rest day is when it's time to go on Monday, or when it's time to start your program, or when it's get ready
fresh
into the week or working, you've got no energy.
Nothing.
No, there's nothing to do.
You're
spent.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you are understanding how your body works on a rest day, and that don't feel guilty if you do miss a session. You miss a session here and there.
Yeah.
That's okay. Get back into your routine. Try not to go, oh, well, I missed, say, Monday, Tuesday. That's okay. I'm going to train twice on Wednesday and Thursday to make up for it.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that. That wouldn't be smart. Yeah,
Be smart, guys.
yeah,
please.
just follow the normal plan. That's okay, and hopefully it'll work itself out.
The other thing people need to remember too is that like if you're someone who's doing heavy weights, that is going to fatigue your central nervous system. So, for example, Brandon just did a powerlifting competition on the weekend, and you did maximal squat, maximal bench press, maximal deadlift. Like, they are like heavy lifts. And, when you do that kind of training, your nervous system is going to be fried. Like it is. It's just, that's a matter of fact. So you're probably going to feel like you've been hit by a bus for a week after something like that, whether it's competition or just a heavy lifting session where you did 1RMs, and that's how you feel? Yeah. See?
It's definitely how I feel. I feel like this right eye just wants to close. It's so swollen. So swollen.
You look fine. It's okay.
Yeah, this morning
But
everyone
yeah.
just keeps saying how tired I look.
Yeah, but like it's true. Like, you do something like that, you do heavy lifting, like you're gonna feel beat up, you're gonna feel like you need a rest. There's a reason that programs have deload weeks, and there's a reason that programs only last for a certain amount of time, and then you'd have sometimes a week off or a deload week, like because you just get so fatigued. Like physiologically, your body needs that recovery time. So just keep that in mind too. If you feel like shit after a really heavy lifting session, that's your body. Like,
You're
it's
pretty
a normal
normal.
response.
Yeah. Congratulations, you're normal.
So that's about all we had for today with this little discussion about recovery and rest days, and more is not more. So if you like our podcast, please make sure you kind of give us a like. Maybe you want to share us on your Instagram stories. You can also leave reviews on iTunes, I believe, Apple Podcasts, all that sort of stuff. I don't use Apple Podcasts, but apparently it's a cool thing to do.
Yeah, it's quite popular.
We're also on YouTube if you haven't seen. So some of you might be watching this video on YouTube, and we would love your comments and likes and all the rest. If you have any ideas for discussions, please let us know, because we are very open to ideas and we love talking about all things health, fitness and well-being. Brandon's a nutritionist. I'm an osteo. We're both strength coaches. So we've got lots of things that we can talk about.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next week on the podcast every Thursday. Next week we talk to Mario and Zach, and we talk about a bit of a recap of the powerlifting comp and what we're going to be working on after the comp.
Yeah, cool. See you guys.
See ya.